The residual energy of the convention still clung to Julian, a faint buzz under his skin as he stood in his own living room. Ethan's gaze was fixed on him, a focused curiosity that made the space feel smaller. A familiar heat crept up Julian's neck. He felt cornered by a flimsy excuse of his own making. The bag from the Comic-Con sat on the floor, a canvas tote filled with the day's haul. Under Ethan's unwavering stare, Julian rummaged through a chaotic mix of art books and merchandise, pulling out a few items that seemed relatively innocuous. He offered them to Ethan, explaining they were for him. Ethan politely refused, mentioning something about not wanting to take his uncle's swag, a term he must have picked up recently. He pushed the items back with a disarmingly mature gesture, stating that he was just interested in borrowing the manga. The casual, formal tone of his request was jarring. One might have thought he was asking to borrow a textbook for a calculus class. It made Julian wonder when Ethan had learned to sound so distant. His hand was still holding a manga he'd fished out of the bag. Ethan leaned in, his expression relaxed. He asked if that was the one Julian had picked for him. Julian quickly denied it, pulling the book back. He told Ethan firmly not to read it. When Ethan inquired why, Julian explained that Ethan's uncle, his own brother, would metaphorically kill him. Ethan lowered his gaze for a moment before speaking softly. He assured Julian that his interest in the genre was his own choice, something no one had forced on him. He was an adult, he stated, and he knew what he wanted. The quiet intensity of his gaze fell upon Julian, creating a complex, unreadable feeling in his chest. Was this genre really what he wanted? While the logic was sound, Julian couldn't bring himself to share that particular book. He turned and put the manga away, instead picking up a small acrylic charm and handing it over as a gift. Fingers hooked through the small metal ring, from which dangled a cartoonish figure. A boy with a white shirt, soft black hair, and two charming spots of pink on his cheeks. A smile touched Ethan's lips as he accepted it, ceasing his teasing. He examined the charm and asked which comic it was from. Julian told him it was the main character from a series called The Tutor. Ethan studied it for another moment, remarking that it was well made and bore a slight resemblance to Julian. Julian's brow furrowed. He was about to protest the comparison to the dark-haired, submissive character when Ethan mused aloud, wondering whether it would look better hanging on his backpack or used as a keychain. Julian took a sharp breath. He felt as if Ethan were deliberately testing the limits of his composure. He reached out and placed a hand on Ethan's arm, explaining that it was merchandise from a boys' love comic and probably wasn't suitable for public display. Ethan seemed completely unconcerned, a small smile playing on his lips. He acknowledged the point but noted that it was the first gift Julian had ever given him, and for that reason he wanted to display it. With that, he stood up and left the room, calling out his thanks. Julian watched him go, mouth slightly agape. A moment later, he touched his own face, unsure if the burning sensation was from embarrassment or something else entirely. The following Monday, after the weekly O'Reilly meeting, the team drifted back to the department. The pressure of the end-of-month deadline had passed, leaving the office in a state of peaceful lethargy. Sunshine streamed through the large windows overlooking the city street, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Julian had just settled into his chair when the tip of a fountain pen jabbed toward his shoulder. Leo stood before his desk, his expression severe, demanding to know why Julian had blocked him on social media. Julian let out a hollow laugh. The question was absurd. The office, starved for entertainment, immediately tuned in. From behind a monitor, a junior or named Chloe whispered loudly about whether they had broken up. Another, Sarah, chimed in with excitement about the potential for a dramatic reconciliation. Julian ignored the chorus of speculation from his drama-inclined colleagues and handed Leo a report, suggesting he review it first. Blocking someone on Instagram was personal. Work was work. Leo took the document, his eyes scanning the pages. He confirmed the action items, mentioning an upcoming business trip and a team-building event. If everything was in order, he would submit the budget request. After a deliberate pause, he echoed Julian's earlier laugh with one of his own. Julian magnanimously acknowledged that everything was confirmed. After discussing several work-related items and finalizing manuscript notes, the professional tension between them eased into a more familiar, calmer rhythm. With business concluded, Leo returned to the original topic, once again asking for the reason behind the social media block. Julian remained silent for a moment. Leo studied his expression, a smirk slowly forming as he pushed his glasses up his nose. He ventured a guess, asking if his prediction had come true, referencing the new kid Julian was living with. Julian gasped, nearly flinging his pen across the desk. He flatly denied it, his voice a picture of calm that his reddening face betrayed. Leo chuckled, pointing out the blush. Julian muttered that he was being tricked. During their silent standoff, Chloe walked by, dramatically lamenting what the senior and junior Orrs could possibly be discussing that would make Julian blush so furiously. Leo calmly stated they were talking about another man. Chloe's theatrics came to an abrupt halt. She staggered back a few steps, clutching her chest with a look of pure shock before announcing she needed to get some water to process the revelation. After scaring away their nosy colleague, Julian looked at Leo, exasperated by the nonsense he was spouting. Ethan was just a kid. He paused, a memory surfacing. Ethan in the study, his tall frame dwarfing the furniture, turning to declare that he was an adult. Leo's voice cut through his thoughts, weaving a hypothetical scenario about what happens when your roommate discovers you reading BL comics. Julian's focus snapped back. He retorted with a counter-scenario about what happens when your roommate wants to borrow your BL comics. This seemed to surprise Leo, who asked if his own roommate, Aaron, was interested in the genre. Julian simply looked at him with a mysterious expression, saying nothing. Chloe, having recovered, drifted back over, asking if they were still on the topic of the other man. Julian, without missing a beat, told her they had moved on to a different one. Chloe looked as though she'd been struck by lightning and floated away again, muttering that everyone had gone insane. The ridiculous workplace drama was finally cut short by the demands of the new month's workload. Everyone returned to their desks, and the office hummed with productivity until 5 o'clock. Leo, with a grand gesture, declared the day over and reminded everyone about the team dinner. A cheer went up. Julian hadn't forgotten, but he had forgotten to tell Ethan. He quickly pulled out his phone while packing his bag and sent a message. Julian, "Hey, work dinner tonight, so I won't be home for dinner." The reply came almost instantly. Ethan, "Okay. Have fun." On a university athletic field across town, practice had just ended. Ethan smiled as he typed his reply. Mike, catching sight of his expression from the side, asked him what he was smiling about so creepily. Ethan turned to him, his smile vanishing into a cold look. Mike flinched, quickly adding that he looked normal now. Ethan put his phone away and casually explained that his uncle had messaged to say he wouldn't be home for dinner. Another teammate, overhearing, found it strange that Ethan would be so happy about that. The teammate nudged Mike, pointing out how close Julian and Ethan must be for Julian to report his dinner plans, something he never did for Mike when they were roommates. Before anyone could get tangled in that web of logic, both Ethan and Mike spoke at once, questioning why Julian would need to tell Mike his plans. The topic was dropped. Mike suggested that since Julian was out, they should all go out for a big meal to gear up for the weekend's tournament. Ethan was indifferent, telling them to decide. The O'Reilly team's dinner was at a popular new fusion restaurant Sarah had chosen. As Julian followed them inside, he saw the clean, spacious interior filled with long communal tables, creating a lively atmosphere perfect for large groups. They took a table near the entrance. Being a group of close colleagues, the chatter started immediately as they settled in. One of the younger Orrs, Amy, pulled out a small, laminated sign and propped it up in the napkin dispenser. It read, in bold black letters, BL Manga Editorial Team Dinner. Julian's eye twitched. He asked what it was. Amy proudly explained it was to give their dinner a sense of occasion and team spirit. He closed his eyes briefly. It was embarrassing. Amy, misinterpreting his reaction, slapped the table excitedly, asking if he was ashamed of their passion. He was, in fact, ashamed. But given the sign's small size, he let it go. The food began to arrive, and with it, the conversation grew louder, fueled by pitchers of craft beer. Sarah slammed her glass down, complaining about having to plan a Valentine's Day feature when her own love life was a mess. This immediately sparked a flurry of gossip about her dating life. Julian was quietly peeling a shrimp when the topic suddenly shifted to him. The question was posed. What was the deal with him and Leo? Sarah turned to him, noting that while they all joked around, she'd never actually asked if either of them was in a serious relationship. Julian paused, shrimp in hand. Chloe then announced loudly that she had overheard them earlier talking about other men, plural. A collective gasp went around the table as his colleagues processed this shocking and entirely false piece of gossip. The conversation was spiraling into absurdity. Julian couldn't take it anymore and blurted out that there weren't that many, just two. The words hung in the air, followed by 2 seconds of stunned silence from Julian himself. Then the table erupted. He sat frozen. No, that wasn't right. Leo slid his chair away slightly, declaring that he wouldn't be helping clean up this mess. As the group clamored for details, demanding to know who the men were, a commotion came from the restaurant's entrance. A familiar voice cut through the noise, announcing that Mr. Scott was covering everyone's tab for the night. A cheer went up from a group of students entering the restaurant. Julian's heart leaped into his throat. He looked up. A shock of blonde hair, Mike, bounced through the doorway, followed by a shifting shadow. Ethan, backpack slung over one shoulder, strolled in behind him. Julian's eyes widened. What were they doing here? As if sensing his gaze, Ethan looked over. His eyes met Julian's, and he too seemed to pause in surprise. Then his gaze shifted to the side, landing on the damning little sign on the table. BL Manga Editorial Team Dinner. Mike was asking Ethan what he was looking at. In a flash of panic, Julian's hand shot out like a blade, chopping the sign in two and hiding the letters BL. At the same moment, Mike spotted him and ran over excitedly, greeting him. Julian calmly flipped the torn piece of paper face down on his seat and returned the greeting. It all happened in an instant. By the time anyone else processed the scene, all that remained was a lonely sign that read, Manga Editorial Team Dinner. Mike noticed the half sign and commented on their team dinner. Julian, clutching the other half, simply agreed. A knowing gaze seemed to drift over from somewhere nearby. Julian managed the brief reunion, sending Mike and the others to their table. When the crowd dispersed, Ethan was still standing there. His eyes were on Julian's hand, a hint of a smile on his face. He began to speak, his voice low. Julian's knuckles whitened around the piece of paper, terrified of what he might say. His heart pounded, But Ethan just chuckled and said he was going to his table. Julian exhaled. As Ethan walked to the adjacent table, he discreetly typed something on his phone. Julian had just looked away when his own phone vibrated. "Ethan, nice moves, uncle." Julian knew it. He pressed the screen of his phone dark, a wave of numbness washing over him. Then again, it was just Ethan. He felt he had nothing left to lose in front of him. Ethan settled at his table, separated from Julian by a narrow aisle. Immediately, Sarah leaned over, her voice a hushed, excited whisper. She asked about the handsome guy and his college friends, confirming that Julian knew them. Julian nodded, her to be discreet. Sarah mimed, zipping her lips. Amy looked tragically at the broken sign, a symbol of their shattered dreams. Julian quickly tried to salvage the moment with a nonsensical platitude about holding their dreams in their hands. The sentimentality was so forced it stopped her tears. Just as he had settled his own table, a loud gasp came from the next. Julian looked over to see Mike staring at Ethan in shock. Ethan was nonchalantly unzipping his backpack. The keychain, which had been tucked into a side pocket, slid into full view on the front of the bag. Julian's own internal gasp echoed Mike's. Ethan had actually put it on his backpack. Sarah, who was closest, turned her head and recognized the familiar character, starting to ask if that wasn't. Julian abruptly stood up, raising his glass. Everyone at his table stopped and turned to him. It was rare for him to take the initiative like this. He held their expectant gazes for a few seconds, then announced that he would like their senior, or Leo, to propose a toast. Leo shot him an incredulous look from behind his glasses. What was he doing? Julian's eyes pleaded back. "Save me this one time and I'll unblock you." Leo's expression communicated a dry laugh but also an agreement, on the condition that Julian now owed him one. The silent bargain struck. Leo cleared his throat and stood up. The commotion didn't seem to affect the neighboring table. Mike was still staring at the keychain, his voice low as he asked Ethan where on earth he got it. He knew it was from the Comic-Con. Ethan glanced sideways before zipping his bag up, claiming he bought it himself. Mike was incredulous, pointing out that it was from a BL comic. Ethan shrugged, saying it looked cool. Mike could only stare, unable to comprehend the logic of the popular athletic student. The long, rambling toast finally ended. Leo sat down and pointedly mentioned the block list. Julian, true to his word, took out his phone and removed him. Seeing them reconciled, Chloe couldn't resist her old habits and began to squirm with glee about the oars making up. Sarah kicked her under the table. Chloe suddenly remembered that their oars acquaintances were at the next table. She clamped her mouth shut, glancing over nervously. She saw that the other table was absorbed in their own conversations, except for the handsome guy, who seemed to be looking in their direction. She quickly corrected herself, finishing her sentence with a nonsensical phrase about looking at the sky from a well. Leo gave her a cold stare, asking if she had a problem with her superiors. Julian, with a numb sigh, had to unblock Leo again after accidentally blocking him in his haste. The rest of the dinner was an exercise in extreme damage control. Julian didn't leave his seat for a second, drinking copious amounts of water, and now he desperately needed the restroom. But he was afraid his table would descend into chaos the moment he left. As he sat there, holding his breath, Leo noticed and asked why he had stopped eating. Julian explained he was making room. Just as he took a third deep breath, his phone vibrated. He opened it. "Ethan, need to use the restroom?" How did he know? Julian looked across the aisle and met Ethan's eyes through the crowd. Ethan's lips curved into a smile before he looked down and typed again. "Ethan, go ahead." I'll run interference. Julian. How? Oh, Ethan. I'll make Mike give a toast. So he had heard everything. Julian pressed his lips together, put his phone away, and stood up. The restaurant was busy, and there was a line for the restrooms. He had to wait for a while. When he returned, he saw Mike standing up, looking completely bewildered, announcing that he, too, would like to propose a toast. Julian paused. Just how out of control had things gotten? On his way back, he passed Ethan's table. Ethan, resting his chin on his hand, gave him a little wink, as if to say, I did a good job, right? Julian returned an affirming look that clearly meant, Mike is doing a good job. He had just sat down when his phone vibrated again. Julian looked at the string of smug emojis from Ethan and couldn't help but reply with a sticker of a hand patting a dog's head. Leo's cool voice materialized next to his ear. Asking who he was texting with that was making him blush. Julian nearly dropped his chopsticks. He quickly turned his phone screen down, claiming the blush was from long ago, just the alcohol. Leo observed that this particular blush seemed different. Julian retorted that Leo's mind was just dirty. While they bickered, the other oars, fueled by alcohol, couldn't suppress their shipping instincts. Assuming the college students wouldn't understand their niche jargon, they started whispering not so subtly. They mused about Julian being drunk and how Leo should be the one to take him home. Suddenly, Mike's voice cut in from the next table, asking if Julian was drunk again. Then his voice shifted. Hey, Ethan. Julian looked up instinctively. At the same time, a figure appeared before him. A large hand reached out, covering the top of his glass. Ethan had walked over, his eyes cast down as he asked if Julian was drunk and if he wanted to go home. The chatter at the table instantly ceased, all eyes fixed on them. Julian gestured to the pile of shrimp shells he had methodically dismantled. He wasn't drunk, he said, and suggested they go home together after Ethan's group was finished. Ethan glanced at the evidence. His group had arrived earlier and were nearly done anyway. He said it was fine and that he would just go settle their bill. With that, he went to take care of it. Julian accepted and began gathering his things. The stunned silence at his table slowly broke. Sarah stammered, asking what he meant by going home together. Julian explained that Ethan quickly returned after paying the bill just as Julian finished packing up. He said his goodbyes to the table, and the two of them walked toward the door. Sarah, who was facing the entrance, watched as the tall, handsome young man leaned down slightly toward their oar. She heard him ask if they should walk, get an Uber, or drive drunk. Julian's reply was calm and cheerful. Driving drunk, he said, because then they wouldn't have to cook tomorrow. When Ethan asked why, Julian explained it was because they'd have jail food. The restaurant door clicked shut behind them, leaving their silhouettes to disappear into the night. A profound silence fell over the dinner table. The oars exchanged looks, a sudden collective understanding dawning on them all. That was the other man. They decided to walk. The path home faced the setting sun, its crimson glow casting long shadows ahead of them. The warm light colored their faces. Ethan, looking at the horizon, said softly that Julian worked too hard. Julian replied just as quietly that it wasn't hard. It was self-inflicted. They walked in silence for a while. After a moment, Julian thought to ask how Ethan had explained the keychain to Mike. Ethan, hands casually in his pockets, said he just told him he bought it because it looked cool. Julian turned to look at him. He remembered Ethan saying it was the first gift he'd ever given him, and that he liked it very much. He had cherished it enough to hang it on his bag, yet he couldn't admit who had given it to him. A wave of tenderness washed over Julian. He told Ethan that if there was anything else he wanted, his uncle would get it for him. Ethan turned his head at the words, and their eyes met. The last rays of the setting sun were reflected in his dark pupils, warm and bright. His answer was simple: BL manga. By the time they got home, it was 8 o'clock. Julian told Ethan to shower first. As the sound of running water filled the apartment, Julian gave the matter serious thought. Ethan seemed genuinely curious. At his age, the more something was forbidden, the more appealing it became. Rather than hiding it and letting Ethan find some of the more extreme content on his own, it seemed wiser to provide him with something relatively tame, to show him it was nothing special. With this in mind, Julian went to his study and found an older, heavily censored manga from his collection. Half an hour later, Ethan emerged from the bathroom, water dripping from the ends of his hair. Julian approached him and, affecting a casual tone, told him he could borrow the book. Ethan, who was toweling his hair, paused. He looked at Julian for a moment, then a corner of his mouth lifted as he took the book. He thanked his uncle and promised to read it carefully. Julian, trying to maintain his composure, said it was fine to just skim it. Ethan chuckled and agreed. After handing over the manga, Julian went to take his own shower. Perhaps it was the lingering effects of the beer, but his face still felt hot. No matter how censored it was still a boys' love comic. He finished his shower in a state of mild anxiety. When he pushed open the bathroom door, he saw Ethan sitting on the living room couch, engrossed in the book. His long fingers held the pages as he turned them one by one. Julian composed himself and ambled over, casually asking how he was finding it. Ethan frowned. He said it didn't feel right. Julian felt a small sense of relief. So, he couldn't quite accept this kind of story after all. But then Ethan pointed to a panel. In a scene with this kind of atmosphere, shouldn't they be kissing? Why were they just giving each other a thumbs up? So that was what was wrong. He asked Julian if he had any other manga. Julian, flustered, lied that the others were all like that. Ethan just nodded and went back to reading. Seeing that he wasn't pressing the issue, Julian retreated to his own room. The next morning at the office, Julian was met with a barrage of stares the moment he walked in. His colleagues swarmed him with questions, asking about his other man and demanding to know why he hadn't mentioned he was living with a handsome young college athlete. He ignored them and floated to his desk. Leo let out a knowing hum, adding fuel to the fire by narrating a dramatic title, After a Night of Drinking. My blodeuring self was talking home by my ruimate. Julian shot him a look, correcting him. Nemesis. Leo just smirked. The gossip subsided for a moment. After a few seconds, Leo leaned over the partition, asking if the kid had said anything about finding out he reads BL comics. Julian's hand froze. He lied that Ethan was just curious and asked to borrow one to see. He cursed Leo's sharp intuition. Leo pushed his glasses up, studying him for a few seconds before delivering a cryptic good luck with that and sinking back behind his desk. Julian calmly pulled up a photo of Aaron on his monitor and positioned it for protection. A ward against Leo. The day passed quickly. When Julian got home that afternoon, Ethan wasn't back yet. He saw the manga he had lent him sitting on the coffee table. A small sticky note was attached to the cover. On it was a simple drawing of a big dog with the words "Thank you" and "Returned with care." He couldn't help but smile. It was quite endearing, and it seemed Ethan was very respectful of boundaries. Even though Julian had essentially given him permission to enter his study, he had returned the book to the living room instead of venturing inside. Julian felt a sense of relief. It was for the best, considering some of the books in his forbidden zone were on a completely different level. At around 7, Ethan finally came home. Julian, from the couch, greeted him, noting that he was later than usual. Ethan, taking off his shoes, apologized, explaining that he had made a stop at a bookstore. Julian's eyes narrowed. Ethan walked over and dropped his backpack, saying that the manga from yesterday wasn't really his style, so he went to pick out some for himself. Julian stared at him, shocked. He had a style? He looked at Ethan, handsome and athletic, and couldn't begin to imagine him browsing the BL section of a bookstore, drawing stares from other customers and the staff who had to help him. The thought made him dizzy. He asked what kind of look the cashier gave him. Ethan replied nonchalantly that he didn't know. He then opened his bag with a grin and emptied its contents onto the couch. He surmised that, given the amount he bought, she probably looked at him with happiness. Julian was stunned by his refreshingly straightforward, socially oblivious logic. His eyes widened at the pile of manga covering the sofa. How had he even carried all of this? There had to be 20 or 30 books. He swallowed hard, struggling to find words, finally managing to ask if he had bought out their entire stock. Ethan replied with regret that he hadn't. His backpack was full. Julian looked at him in disbelief. The only reason he hadn't bought more was because he couldn't carry it. He murmured that Ethan had truly suffered. Ethan nodded gravely, saying he would just have to go back another time. He then bent down and started to organize the books, casually asking if Julian saw anything he liked. Julian closed his eyes. "No, thank you." As Ethan tidied up, Julian's gaze swept over the titles. Arranged Marriage with the CEO, My Brother's Secret, Forbidden Locker Room, My Roommate and I. Oh God. His ears began to burn. Ethan's taste was forbidden. He felt an urgent need to leave the room. Just as he was about to escape, Ethan asked if it was okay to put the books on the TV stand. Julian glanced at the only empty shelf and agreed. Ethan picked up a stack of books, the weight causing the muscles in his forearm to flex. His dark eyes were calm and bright, making him look like a well-behaved large dog. He asked if Julian could help him move them. Julian's escape was foiled. He sighed and bent down to pick up the remaining books. As they moved them to the shelf, his eyes couldn't help but scan the covers again. He spotted a manga he had just been looking at online, a special hardcover Ion he hadn't bought for himself because it was too expensive. His resolve wavered for a fraction of a second. A voice next to him asked if he liked that one. His fingers fumbled, and a book clattered to the floor. Ethan leaned over. "My wicked underclassman." Julian sucked in a breath, quickly stacked the books on the shelf, and cut him off, denying it. He then composed himself and picked up the fallen book, apologizing for dropping it. Ethan said it was fine. As he arranged the books, he said that since they were out in the open, they could consider them shared property, and Julian could take one whenever he wanted. He sounded so generous that Julian, who was notoriously stingy about lending his own manga, felt a pang of guilt. Looking at the shelf, now filled with a collection as extensive as his own, he figured it didn't make much difference anymore. He took a deep breath and, in a similarly casual tone, said that the books in his study, Ethan could take those whenever he wanted as well. The movement beside him stopped. Ethan turned to look at him. His face was illuminated by the living room light, a hint of a smile in his eyes. He asked if that meant he could freely enter his uncle's forbidden zone. Heat rushed to Julian's face. He looked straight ahead, not meeting Ethan's gaze, and confirmed. At this point, the entire apartment was steeped in a forbidden atmosphere anyway. Since Ethan had returned late, they hadn't eaten. It was too late to start a complicated meal. Ethan, having finished shelving the books, went to the sink to wash his hands. He asked if tomato and egg pasta was okay for dinner. Julian looked at him with a soft expression. He offered to cook, saying Ethan must be tired after his bookstore expian. Ethan just laughed and grabbed 2 tomatoes, insisting that he do it, as Julian was the one who was truly tired. Seeing his resolve, Julian relented and went to help him. The open-plan kitchen felt much smaller with both of them in it. The silence felt awkward, so Julian tried to think of something to say. Just as he was about to comment on the neighbor's dog, Ethan broke the silence. He mentioned he was going to start with my wicked underclassmen. Julian almost choked. How had they so seamlessly transitioned into discussing BL manga? He maintained his composure and made a non-committal noise. As Ethan sautéed the tomatoes and eggs, a cloud of steam rose, partially obscuring his handsome, smiling profile. He commented that he didn't quite understand the text on the cover and asked what Gekukujo meant, and how it was different from age gap. Julian, trying to sound as normal as possible, explained that Gekukujo usually referred to a power dynamic like a difference in status or rank. Ethan nodded and asked him to add some water to the pan. Then he asked about age gap, wondering if it meant the younger one was on the bottom. No, Julian started to say, it's when the older one is on the... He stopped mid-sentence, a sense of déjà vu washing over him. He suddenly remembered that time after grocery shopping when Ethan had asked him the very same question. He looked up instinctively and saw Ethan looking back at him. With their backs to the living room, Ethan's eyes, shaded by his lashes, held a glint of amusement. He repeated softly, "Oh, so it's when the older one is on the bottom." As they looked at each other, his shadow fell over Julian's face. For a moment, Julian's breathing hitched. He quickly snapped out of his daze and turned to pour the water. The pitcher clanked against the rim of the pan, and the entire contents poured in. Ethan turned back to the pan. They both stared at the soupy mixture in silence for a few seconds. Julian spoke first, his voice gentle. He asked if they could have tomato and egg noodle soup for dinner instead. Ethan stirred the contents thoughtfully. He assured his uncle that the amount of water was perfect, and wondered how he knew that he was suddenly craving soup. Julian, with a placid smile, replied that he guessed it the moment he poured the water. The next day, when Julian entered the O'Reilly department, he instinctively held his breath upon seeing Leo. The man was a walking curse. Leo met his gaze and frowned, asking what his problem was, looking at him as if he were pixelated. Chloe, sensing drama, started to gravitate toward them. Julian calmly walked to his desk, stating that he just wanted to block him from his world. Leo just thoughtfully pushed up his glasses again. Sarah popped her head up from the opposite desk, telling him that blocking was not an option, as they were planning a badminton game for the weekend. Julian asked when. Saturday, of course. He checked his calendar, saying he probably couldn't make it on Saturday. He had a regional youth track meet to attend. He was going to cheer someone on. The office fell silent for a moment. Then a crowd swarmed his desk. It was that athlete from the other day, the handsome guy living with him, his younger man. The tip of his pen scratched across the manuscript. Julian flinched. He couldn't hear the term younger man right now. All it did was conjure images of a soupy tomato and egg dinner. He clarified that he was going to cheer for everyone equally. Beside him, Leo cast him a sidelong glance. Chloe immediately started whispering loudly to another colleague that it was many men. He could hear her perfectly well. After the commotion died down, he asked for the time of the badminton game. It was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. He wasn't sure how long the track meet would last. He said that if it ended early, he would come. Sarah was thrilled. At 5:30, Julian was just leaving the office when Leo called out to him. He was standing by his car, about to get in. Julian saw his mouth open and immediately put up a hand, telling him he didn't want to hear anything he had to say right now. Leo closed his mouth and just looked at him, hands in his pockets. They stared at each other for a few seconds before Julian remembered that Leo was, technically, his boss. He was about to relent when Leo spoke, saying that Julian had been acting strange lately. An inexplicable unease settled in Julian's stomach. He asked what he meant. Leo observed him for a few moments, his lips parting slightly. Julian's heart rate picked up. Then he saw Leo close his mouth, adjust his glasses, and say, "You've been strangely cute lately." The outdated, cringy joke hit Julian like a ton of bricks. It was so lame. Leo was even asking for feedback on his new material. Julian gave him a complicated look, turned, and walked away, advising him to go outside and experience the real world. As the tutal-laden figure disappeared, Leo let out a small smile, swallowing the words he had intended to say. He had enough to worry about with the Valentine's Day event. He didn't need to worry about someone else's love life. He got into his Prius and drove away. When Julian got home, Ethan was already there. He was sitting on the couch, engrossed in a manga. When he saw Julian, he looked up and commented that he seemed tired. Julian drifted to his bedroom, explaining that he had just been subjected to a terrible joke. When he came out after changing, Ethan was still on the couch, reading. He held the book with one hand, making it look small. He seemed so open and natural about it. Julian watched him for a moment. Ethan's profile was calm, his lashes lowered, his expression unreadable. He wondered if Ethan felt anything at all when he read these stories. As if sensing his thoughts, the person on the couch looked up. "What is it, Uncle?" His voice was a little rough, a subtle rasp that vibrated in the air. His gaze seemed deeper than usual. Julian's own gaze flickered away. It seemed he wasn't completely unaffected after all. He averted his eyes and asked if he was just going to sit in the living room and read. Ethan continued to flip through the pages, explaining that the couch was more comfortable. "Shouldn't you do something you enjoy in a comfortable place?" Julian's head snapped to the side. How had reading BL become something Ethan enjoyed? But he had to admit Ethan had a point. He watched him sitting there so at ease and casual. A strange feeling stirred in him, and he, too, began to feel more relaxed. It even made the idea of hiding away in his study to read seem childish. He adjusted his mindset, grabbed a manga of his own, and settled into the beanbag chair by the balcony. Once he took that step, it didn't seem like such a big deal anymore. He became absorbed in his book. As he turned a page, he pressed his lips together to suppress a grin. The drama, the love triangle, it was perfect. From the couch, Ethan put down his own book and looked over. It was evening, and the golden light of the setting sun streamed in through the window behind Julian, bathing him in a warm glow as he curled up in the beanbag chair. His fingers were pressed to his lips, his eyes bright with delight, and even the tips of his ears were tinged with a faint pink. Ethan's fingers lightly traced the edge of the page in his own book, a smile forming on his lips. Once you're immersed in a good manga, it's easy to lose track of your surroundings. Time passed. Julian, still reading, reached for his water glass, only to find it empty. He stretched and got up to get more water. A figure suddenly appeared before him. Ethan was already walking over with the water pitcher, bending down to refill his glass. He asked if he was thirsty. Julian felt like a helpless invalid, blushing as he thanked him for the trouble. Ethan responded that it was indeed inconvenient, given the distance. He then suggested that if he moved over, it would be more convenient to refill the glass. So it was about making it easier to serve him. Julian was once again struck by his dedication. But there was only one beanbag chair, and he couldn't let Ethan sit on the floor. He put his book down and said there was no need to refill his glass. He could just get it himself when he was thirsty. Ethan blinked, gave a non-committal and the topic was dropped. The next day, just as he was about to leave work, Julian got a call about a reprint for one of their most popular series. While on the phone, he managed to send a quick text to Ethan. "Julian, hey, have to stay late at work. If you're hungry, go ahead and eat without me." The reply came quickly. "Ethan, it's fine. I'll wait for you." Julian estimated he wouldn't be too late, so he replied with an okay and went back to work. He finished up around 6:30. He caught a cab home just as the sun was setting. He pushed open the door to his apartment. "Ethan, I'm ho," the words died in his throat. Directly in front of him on the balcony was a second, large beanbag chair, placed neatly next to his own. A small table sat between them, laden with snacks and drinks. Bathed in the twilight, the scene looked both cozy and surreal. Julian stood frozen in the doorway. Had he stumbled into a resort? Ethan, seeing him, greeted him casually. He then pointed to the new setup. Julian had already seen it. He was in shock. So this is what Ethan meant by eating together. Ethan then asked if he wanted the new spot or his old one. Julian mumbled that his old one was fine. Ethan suggested he try it out to see if he was comfortable and thoughtfully handed him a manga. Julian, in a daze, thanked him and sat down. Ethan quickly settled into the seat beside him. The comfortable beanbag chairs faced the balcony, with snacks and drinks within easy reach. In the quiet evening, the crimson sunset flowed over the pages of their books. Julian, holding his manga, slowly came back to his senses. Amidst the peaceful scene, a strange sense of familiarity washed over him. A memory surfaced. His fantasy of having a girlfriend, sitting together in the sunset, reading BL manga, and letting out silvery peals of laughter. The pages of the manga crumpled in his hand. He looked up sharply. Damn it. This was exactly that scene. But with the gender swapped, the atmosphere felt completely different. He wondered absently if it was because Ethan wasn't letting out silvery peals of laughter. "Uncle." A voice called from beside him. He turned to see Ethan, all long limbs, leaning back in his beanbag chair and looking at him. "How is it? Comfortable enough?" Julian collected himself. "It's acceptable." Ethan nodded, the corners of his mouth turning up. "Shall we eat then?" Julian was still immersed in the current atmosphere. He looked down at his manga. Weren't they already eating? Ethan paused, then pointed toward the dining table. He explained patiently that he didn't mean spiritual sustenance, but Julian's physical body. Julian stood up. They walked toward the dining area together. Julian, still reeling from the newly established resort-like setup, hadn't noticed that dinner was already cooked and on the table. Following behind Ethan, he felt as if he were walking on clouds. Coming home to a cooked meal, no dishes to wash, snacks to eat, manga to read. Amidst this overwhelming sense of bliss, a sliver of rational thought broke through. It felt like something was slowly taking over his life. At the table, there were 3 dishes and a soup. Julian looked at the pot of turnip and tofu soup and pulled out his chair. He asked if the soup was intentional or an accident. Ethan smiled. He said he guessed Julian wanted it the moment he poured the water. He had barely taken a few bites when his phone rang. Ethan glanced at the caller ID and answered, "Hello, Uncle." It was Julian's brother. Julian looked up. Even without speakerphone, he could hear his brother's voice clearly, asking Ethan if he had eaten and about his track meet that weekend. Ethan confirmed. His brother's voice then became softer, explaining that both his parents were flying out of town that week. He had planned to come and cheer Ethan on, but he had just gotten a call about an urgent matter on Saturday. Ethan was silent for a few seconds, his eyes downcast. He said it was fine. His expression was placid, as casual as ever. But watching him, Julian felt a strange tightness in his chest. It was as if Ethan was already used to this sort of thing. Julian's grip on his chopsticks tightened. He was about to speak when his brother's tone suddenly shifted, struck by a brilliant idea. What if he proposed? He set Ethan's photo as his phone's wallpaper and propped it up at his dinner table, as a symbol of his presence. A sudden silence fell over their own dinner table. The gesture was both suffocating and strangely familiar. Ethan slowly looked over at Julian. Julian slowly averted his gaze. It had nothing to do with him. After a long moment, Ethan spoke. He said it wasn't necessary. His uncle would be with him that day. His brother was surprised, asking if he meant Julian. He then called out loudly, asking if Julian was there. Ethan put the phone on speaker, and Julian confirmed his presence. His brother apologized profusely, thanking him for being there for Ethan. He then added that Ethan should appreciate Julian, as he rarely ever went out. Ethan paused, looking at Julian. "Uncle, you don't like going out?" Julian collected himself. "I used to." He glared at the phone. That was enough. There was no need to reminisce. But his brother had already started. He recalled their college days, how out of the 7 days of the week, if classes didn't fall during lunchtime, he would be the one bringing Julian his meals 3 of those days. Julian stared at the phone. Chase, perhaps sensing his discomfort, Ethan offered a comforting thought. At least there were still 4 other days. His brother clarified that those other 4 days were covered by their other 2 roommates. If he had to bring him food all 7 days, he would have died of exhaustion. The call ended. What should have been a complicated family drama had somehow concluded with a trip down Julian's memory lane. He closed his eyes, still feeling the faint embarrassment of having his past exposed. A calm voice from across the table spoke. "Uncle, now that I'm your roommate, I can bring you your meals 7 days a week." Julian looked up to see Ethan looking at him. The light from the crystal chandelier above them cast sparkling reflections in Ethan's eyes, which held a quiet smile. A warmth spread through Julian's chest. He was touched. "Ethan, I'm not that helpless." Saturday arrived. Julian had promised to bring some merchandise for Mike's sister, who he heard would also be at the meet, so he stopped by the office to grab some. Sarah saw him and asked if he was planning to scalp them. Julian explained they were a gift. She paused, a knowing look on her face. "For your younger man?" Then she remembered. "Hey, at the dinner, wasn't that a charm from the tutor on his backpack? Does he read BL too, or did you give it to him?" Julian was silent. It was both. But any explanation would be too complicated. He simply grabbed the merchandise and left, saying it was a long story. The day of the meet was clear and sunny. The event was held at a large park's athletic stadium. Ethan's team went together, so Julian took a cab directly there. The park was already crowded. The open-air stadium was surrounded by walking paths, lush trees, and green lawns. The athletes were scattered about, some with their teams, others with family and friends. Julian scanned the crowd and quickly spotted Ethan. He was standing alone by some steps, his backpack on, wearing a loose jacket over his uniform. In the distance, Julian could see Mike and their other teammates with what looked like their families, including Mike's sister, Amy. Julian walked over. "Ethan." Ethan turned, his face moving out of the shade of the trees, and the sunlight caught in his eyes. He smiled. "Uncle." Julian asked why he was alone. Ethan explained that the others were with their families and friends. He was waiting for his uncle. Julian felt a pang in his chest. He apologized for being late due to traffic and asked when his race started. Ethan said the events were staggered. Mike's 4x100 relay was up first, and his own 400-meter race was a bit later. Just as he finished speaking, a familiar, high-pitched call came from afar, sounding like a small, enthusiastic missile. "Julian." He looked up to see Amy charging toward them. He was about to greet her when something flashed in his peripheral vision. He glanced to the side. The tutor keychain was dangling conspicuously from Ethan's backpack. Oh God. Mike might be oblivious, but Amy was not. Seeing her about to reach them, Julian's hand shot out and grabbed the keychain, enclosing it in his palm. The movement pulled on Ethan's backpack, and he turned, confused. As he turned, Julian was pulled along with him, becoming a human appendage to the backpack. The keychain was now a much larger attachment. Ethan, amused, asked what on earth he was doing. Julian looked at him gravely. Shoo. He was handling an impending crisis. They stood there in a strange, interconnected pose as Amy skidded to a halt in front of them. She asked if she was interrupting something. "Not at all," Julian said smoothly, handing her the bag of merchandise. Her attention was immediately diverted. She opened the bag and began to squeal with joy, thanking him profusely. Ethan, his voice low, asked what "moi" meant. Julian explained it was a cute sound effect. Amy continued to rummage through the bag, on the verge of tears, saying how amazing he was for not only accepting BL, but also bringing her merchandise. Most guys were so weird about it. As she said this, Ethan, hands in his pockets, casually remarked that it was no big deal. Amy's tears stopped. Her gaze darted between them. "You think it's no big deal, and you think it's no big deal." Her eyes lit up with understanding. Oh. Julian squeezed the keychain tighter. It was no big deal to Ethan. He had practically bought out a bookstore, and he still had one on his backpack. Soon, the 4x100 relay was about to start. Mike and his teammates headed to the track. As they passed, Mike's blonde hair bounced. He called out to Julian, reminding him to cheer loudly for them. Another teammate smacked him on the head, pointing out that he had never heard Julian shout in his life. Julian calmly replied that he would cheer for them at a moderate volume. The two of them went to the track. Amy had already run ahead to find a good spot in the stands. Julian took the opportunity to stuff the keychain into a crevice in the backpack. Ethan, trying to stifle a laugh, said that Amy wouldn't have cared even if she had seen it. Julian replied sagely that she would have emitted a sound that he would not have been able to endure. They found a good spot in the stands. On the track, the athletes were in position, ready to go. The stadium quieted, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the trees outside. Julian, who had been taking pictures, found himself holding his breath. A gunshot rang out, and the first runners burst from the starting blocks. The stands erupted in a wave of sound. Amy, beside him, was screaming for her brother to go. Julian, remembering his duty, clapped his hands. "Go, go!" Mike ran like lightning, passing the baton to the next runner. Amy screamed for him to go, too. Julian continued his steady cheer. "Go, go!" After the third go, Ethan finally couldn't help but lean over. He remarked that his uncle was truly equal opportunity in his cheering. Not a single word extra, not a decibel higher. Julian lowered his hands, affirming that, of course, he treated everyone the same. After the 4x100, Amy went to find her brother. Ethan also had to get ready for his race. As he stood up, his tall, striking figure drew a lot of attention. He took off his jacket and leaned down to hand it to Julian, asking him to hold it. Julian took it. The jacket was large and soft. He held it in his arms and asked if there was anything else he needed. Ethan paused. Then, still leaning down, he looked up. His back was to the sun, but his eyes were exceptionally bright. He smiled and said that his cheer had to be louder than the one for Mike. The 400-meter individual race started soon after. The atmosphere was different from the relay. Julian watched from the stands as Ethan took his place on the track. His tall frame stood out even among the other athletes. Perhaps it was because he was nervous for him, but Julian's heart began to beat faster. The sounds around him seemed to fade. He found himself standing up and moving closer to the railing. The athletes took their marks. The starter raised his gun. Bang! The sound echoed across the stadium. The figures at the starting line shot forward like arrows from a bow. The crowd roared, a wave of cheers and encouragement crashing down onto the track. The names of other athletes were mixed in with the noise, carried on the hot summer air. Ethan's form was a blur on the track, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. It was just like the first time Julian had seen him run. A powerful rhythm pounded in Julian's chest. The sounds around him became a chaotic roar in his ears, his vision blurring at the edges, leaving only Ethan's figure in sharp focus. He was closing in on the runner ahead of him, only inches behind. Julian's tense, pounding heart reached its peak as Ethan's figure streaked past him. The sound that had been building in his chest finally broke free. Ethan, the figure in front of him, seemed to accelerate, surging past the lead runner and crossing the finish line. First place. A tidal wave of sound erupted from the stands. Amidst the deafening cheers and amazed murmurs, Julian's heartbeat began to steady. Elated, he turned and headed for the exit area of the track. Ethan had just come off the track. Mike's family and other teammates were there. Julian started to walk over, but before he could call out, Ethan looked up, saw him, and walked straight toward him. He seemed to bring the wind from the track with him, his forehead damp with sweat. He reached Julian in a few strides, and then his tall frame seemed to give way, collapsing onto Julian's shoulder. Julian's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively caught him. Ethan's forehead brushed against his neck, his breathing heavy and hot. "Uncle, let me lean on you for a second." For a few moments, the cheers and noise of the crowd faded away, replaced by the sound of hot, ragged breaths in his ear. The rapid breathing made his own heart beat faster. By the time Julian processed what was happening, he heard a piercing whistle from nearby, followed by the coach's loud shout, "Scott, cool down. Go stretch." He snapped back to reality and patted Ethan's back, telling him the coach wanted him to stretch. The head on his shoulder shifted, then lifted. Sweat dripped from his hair. Julian turned to see Ethan's eyes, still sharp with the intensity of the race. His face was flushed and beaded with sweat, making him look incredibly alive. "Uncle, I got your collar wet. Sorry." Julian was momentarily confused, then touched his collar. As he looked up, a breeze blew past, carrying a hint of moisture. He looked into Ethan's damp eyes and, after a moment, said softly, "It's fine. The sun's out. It'll dry in a minute." Ethan's lips seemed to move, but another shout interrupted him. Julian turned to see Mike and the others coming over. Amy's squeal was muffled by her mother's hand. He could still hear her muffled protests, asking why her mom was covering her mouth. Her mother's reply was simple, because she couldn't take it. One of Ethan's teammates threw an arm around his shoulder, exclaiming how amazing he was. Ethan just gave a nonchalant mm. The friend playfully chided him for acting so cool and told him to be happy. Mike's mother, holding a camera, smiled and said she had recorded his magnificent run and would send a copy to his mom. Ethan thanked her, then paused and asked if she could send him a copy as well. After they finished talking, she noticed Julian and asked who he was. Ethan introduced him as the uncle he was staying with. Julian greeted her politely. She exclaimed that Mr. Clark was a man of remarkable talent. Julian's eyes widened. What a distinct family trait. Did everyone in that family enjoy taking his name apart? After a few more pleasantries, the coach urged Ethan to go for his cool-down walk. The park was right outside the stadium, so Julian accompanied him, strolling along a shaded path. He remarked that Mike's mother seemed very fond of him. Ethan explained that their families were close. His mother and her mother were best friends. An image of Ethan's mother formed in Julian's mind. He found it hard to imagine the two best friends in the same frame. His thoughts were interrupted by a vibration. Ethan had taken out his phone. Mike's mom had sent him the video. He put in a pair of earbuds. Julian leaned over, asking if he was admiring his own heroic performance. Not exactly, Ethan replied, watching the video in silence. As it neared the end, he turned up the volume, then closed it with a satisfied expression, murmuring that it was like listening to heavenly music. Julian was confused. Were the cheers from the crowd really that melodious? Ethan put his phone away. Julian didn't press the issue. As they walked, he started to feel thirsty and mentioned it. Ethan pulled out his water bottle. There was about half left, and he asked if Julian wanted some. It was a sports bottle with a spout. Julian took a half step back. He declined, saying he would find some water himself. Before he could finish his sentence, his foot came down on a water hose. The hose, which had been leaking quietly, suddenly squirted, sending a curtain of water directly at him. His eyes squeezed shut. In that brief, torrential downpour, he thought he saw Ethan freeze, his hand still on the cap of his bottle. Then a long arm reached out and pulled him away. The water subsided, and the world was quiet again. A towel was quickly handed to him. He took it and wiped his face. His t-shirt was soaked through. As his dazed mind struggled to catch up, a strong sense of déjà vu washed over him. Then he heard Ethan's quiet voice from in front of him. "Uncle, you still have a knack for finding water." Julian's head snapped up. Their eyes met, and the memory of the swimming pool incident surfaced for both of them at the same time. After a moment, Ethan rephrased, "You are favored by the universe. You get whatever you wish for." Julian corrected him gently. "It's more like being spoiled. I get too much." When they returned, everyone was shocked. Mike's jaw dropped. He asked if Julian had just competed in a triathlon. Julian, not wanting to explain, simply said he had been involved in some urban infrastructure improvement. Mike's mother, who was fiddling with her camera, looked up and commented that he looked sparkling and refreshed. He wasn't refreshed. He was drenched. Mike's sister insisted that he had to change his clothes or he would catch a cold. Julian tugged at his shirt. "It was fine," he said. "With the wind and sun, it would dry quickly." Amidst the chatter, Ethan suddenly spoke. "Where mine?" He looked at Julian. "There's a locker room over there. You can wear my jacket." Julian's heart skipped a beat. Before he could say anything, Mike enthusiastically offered his own, saying it was smaller. Another teammate cut him off, arguing that of course he should wear Ethan's. He could just wash it and return it when he got home. Julian felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. Seemed like a big deal, and yet not a big deal at all. Seeing Amy about to start her excited squealing again, He quickly agreed before the atmosphere could get any more charged. The locker room was on the other side of the stadium. Most of the athletes had already changed, so it was empty. Ethan came in with him. The spacious room was quiet, with sunlight slanting through the high windows, illuminating rows of lockers and benches. Dust motes danced in the light. Felt like a scene from a manga. Julian's heart beat a little faster. He placed the jacket on a bench and turned his back to change, pulling his t-shirt up. The damp fabric peeled away from his skin, leaving a chill behind. As he was pulling it off, he heard Ethan's voice in the quiet room. "This is just like in that manga." Julian's arm got stuck. For a second, he was trapped in his shirt. His mind immediately jumped to the book Ethan had brought home the other day. Forbidden Locker Room. His face, hidden by the shirt, grew hot. He forced himself to calmly pull off the shirt and, with his back still to Ethan, asked what manga he was talking about. Behind him, Ethan made a questioning sound, then said casually, "Track and Field Boys." "You bought a sports manga?" Julian glanced over his shoulder. He saw that Ethan was standing with his hands in his pockets, facing away from him, his gaze fixed on the sunlit windows. He wasn't looking at him at all. The tightness in Julian's chest eased. He turned back and put on Ethan's jacket, zipping it up. It was huge, hanging loosely on him. The fabric, warmed by the sun, felt hot against his back. He had never worn someone else's clothes before, especially not like this. But perhaps because it smelled of the same laundry detergent, it didn't feel as awkward as he had expected. "Ethan, I'm changed." "Thanks." Ethan turned around at his words, his gaze falling on him. The room was quiet. Julian took out his phone, about to suggest they leave, when messages started flooding in. He paused to look at his phone. The department's group chat was asking if he was finished and if he was coming to the badminton game. Leo had added a typically dramatic and annoying message. "Will you choose the BL manga department? Or will you choose him?" This was followed by a link to a song. "Love Me or Love Him." He turned off his phone with a sharp click. When he looked up, he realized Ethan had been silent the whole time, just watching him. "Sorry, Ethan, just replying to a message." He bent down to pick up his wet t-shirt from the bench. "Let's go, As he stood up, a hand reached out and zipped the jacket all the way to the top. The collar covered half of his face. Was he trying to suffocate him? Ethan let go, turning his head away casually. "It's a little big." Julian pulled the collar down, gasping for air. "It is. Especially in the moment when I almost couldn't see the world anymore." Ethan turned back and pulled the zipper down a bit for him. "Sorry." When he returned to the group, all eyes were on him. Mike chuckled. "See, it is huge. It's like you're a little kid wearing..." He paused. "An adult wearing a kid's clothes." Another teammate pointed out that usually meant it wouldn't fit. Amy's eyes were shining again. She covered her mouth and whispered to her mother, asking if she could make a loud noise now. Her mother replied that she could not. Seeing that they were entertaining themselves, Julian turned to Ethan and asked how much longer things would take. Ethan asked why. Julian explained that his department had a team-building badminton game scheduled for that afternoon and were asking when he could get there. Ethan said they could leave after the awards ceremony. Julian asked if they were going to a celebratory dinner. "Not today," Ethan said, then paused for a second. "Everyone will probably celebrate with their families first." Julian felt a pang of sympathy and, without thinking, blurted out, "Then do you want to come play badminton with me? Your uncle will celebrate with you tonight." Ethan turned to him and smiled. "Okay." About 10 minutes later, the coach called for them to gather for the award ceremony. Ethan and the others went over. Julian sent a message to his department group chat, almost done. I'll be coming over with Ethan." The group chat was still sending links to Love Me or Love Him. When his message appeared, there was a collective shock. He chose both. After the award ceremony, Ethan returned with his first-place medal. They said goodbye to Mike and the others and took a cab to the badminton courts. In the car, Julian thought for a moment, then asked Ethan if he had told his family about winning. He had sent a message, but they hadn't replied yet. Ethan stared out the window. They're probably busy. His face, reflecting the passing scenery, had a detached look. Julian pressed his lips together. "Maybe they're busy planning your celebration." Ethan laughed. "Uncle, you don't have to try so hard to cheer me up. I'm already happy enough today." Half an hour later, they arrived at the sports complex. Leo came out to meet them. "Julian," his words trailed off as he saw the jacket Julian was wearing. His glasses flashed. Julian, wary of what he might say, immediately told him to take him to the locker room. His t-shirt was dry by now. He couldn't imagine the reception he would get if he walked into the office wolves' den like this. Leo glanced at Ethan. "Fine." After changing back into his own clothes, Julian and Ethan entered the courts to a warm welcome. The Oars cheered his arrival and then turned their attention to his handsome companion, asking for his name. Ethan politely introduced himself. Sarah welcomed him warmly, telling him to make himself at home. Julian quickly intervened, telling Ethan that wasn't necessary. Treating this place like home would only lead to trouble. Ethan laughed and gave him a sidelong glance. Got it. The entire department was in high spirits. They urged Ethan to join a game. Julian told him to go ahead, as he hadn't warmed up yet. Ethan didn't refuse, taking a racket and walking onto the court. Julian stretched on the sidelines, watching him. He was powerfully built, his every muscle coiled with explosive energy, and his stamina was incredible. Just a few hours ago, he had looked so fragile after the 400-meter race. As he was stretching, his phone, which he had placed on a bench, vibrated. He opened it. "Chase, Julian, Ethan isn't replying to our messages." "Chase, I don't know if he's upset, but please tell him. His dad, his mom, and his uncle all love him very much." Had they all messaged Ethan? Julian's heart warmed. He replied with an okay. 20 minutes later, Ethan came off the court, his forehead beaded with sweat. The overhead lights of the gym reflected in his damp eyes, giving him a wild, untamed look. "Uncle, aren't you going to play?" Julian collected himself. "In a bit. Your uncle just messaged me. He wanted me to tell you that your dad, your mom, and your uncle all love you very much." Ethan seemed to freeze for a moment. Julian urged him to check his phone, saying they had messaged him. Ethan nodded and bent down to pick up his phone. He was quiet for a long time. Julian hadn't intended to pry, but Ethan was just standing there, staring at his phone, seemingly frozen. He cautiously approached him. "Ethan?" The phone was held out in front of him, not hidden. Julian glanced at the screen. It was a picture of 2 separate celebration dinners and 3 phone wallpapers. His parents were apparently together. His uncle was alone. On the lavishly decorated tables were mountains of delicacies. Matsutake mushrooms, sea cucumber, bamboo fungus, king crab. Everything was there except the guest of honor. Ethan's picture was propped up on his phone, which was leaning against a crab. The 3 of them, in different parts of the world, were cheerfully raising their glasses to his photo. The chat bubble below read, "A toast to you from afar." Julian stared in shock at the feast. Then he looked at the hungry guest of honor standing in front of him. A dark storm was brewing in Ethan's eyes. Julian was horrified. Of course he would be upset. He was so stunned that he couldn't think of anything to say. He watched as Ethan turned off his phone with a sharp click. Julian's mind raced. Ethan, they just didn't have the means. Ethan gave a cold laugh. They don't have the heart. He put his phone down and walked back onto the court. A moment later, his own phone vibrated. It was Chase, eagerly asking what Ethan had said. Julian didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. He didn't say anything. Chase, such an inarticulate child. No, he's just well-mannered. Julian couldn't imagine the colorful vocabulary Ethan was holding back. They played badminton for over 2 hours. Around 6, they started to pack up. Perhaps the cheerful atmosphere of the O'Reilly department and the physical exertion had helped Ethan blow off some steam. When he came off the court, he seemed back to his usual casual self. He told Julian he was going to the restroom. Julian, who was packing his bag, said okay. The other oars were also packing up, discussing where to go for dinner. After mentioning a few places, they asked Julian for his opinion. He told them to go ahead without him. He and Ethan were going out for a celebratory dinner. The chatter stopped. All eyes were on him again. Leo smirked. So you chose him after all. With Ethan gone, the group's playful side reemerged. One of them compared Leo to a wet dog, abandoned by the side of the road. Amy whispered about love triangles and drama. Sarah lamented her sinking ship. Julian was tired of their antics. He asked why their creativity didn't flow this freely when they were ING manuscripts. Chloe immediately sounded the alarm, calling out to Leo to look at what Julian was saying. Amidst the chaos, a low voice came from behind them. Is something wrong? The noise instantly died down. Julian turned to see Ethan had returned and was looking down at him. The oars all turned away, pretending to be busy. Julian didn't know how much he had heard. Their eyes met. He composed himself. Nothing, just some teasing. It's a professional hazard. They ship everyone and everything indiscriminately. Ethan just nodded and looked away. The sounds of rustling bags and quiet conversation filled the large, empty gym. Julian was leaning against the wall, watching, when he heard a question from beside him. Like how they tease you and the senior, or... Julian's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head away. It's just a joke. He felt a gaze on him. After a few seconds, Ethan's slow, deliberate voice, tinged with an unreadable amusement, asked, "So you never took any of it seriously?" Seriously? Him and Leo? Julian's brow furrowed. He turned back, his expression stern. Of course not. His one true pairing was Nemesis. After packing up, they all left the gym together. They said their goodbyes outside. Julian watched his colleagues' retreating figures, wary of their knowing glances. When they were gone, he asked Ethan what he wanted to eat for dinner. It was his treat. Ethan replied that since Julian had spent the day at his meet, it was his treat. He pulled out his phone, his tone leaving no room for argument. It's a celebration. My call. Julian saw that he already had an idea. He leaned over. A place nearby? He glanced at the screen and saw that Ethan had pulled up the pictures from earlier. He was carefully comparing them. I'm thinking matsutake mushrooms, sea cucumber, bamboo fungus, king crab. He put his phone away. Let's go. If I don't eat it, someone else will eat it for me. A few minutes later, they were in a cab. Julian, sensing Ethan's not at all resolved anger, sent a quick message to Chase. Julian, be more considerate when you're celebrating for someone. He got an immediate reply, a shocked emoji. Chase, which dessert place is that, specifically? Julian turned off his phone and closed his eyes. Ethan, I'm a little tired. I'm gonna rest my eyes for a bit. He felt like his brain was about to be exiled. Ethan had chosen a seafood restaurant. When they arrived, the place was opulent, glittering with lights. They walked through an entrance tunnel that was like an aquarium, with fish swimming in tanks on 3 sides. Inside, there was an entire wall made of a massive glass fish tank. Julian had never seen anything like it. He couldn't resist taking out his phone to take a picture to send to one of his artists for inspiration. He sent the picture, and one of the artists, a girl who went by CC, replied first. CC, ooh, you went to an aquarium? Julian, seafood restaurant. He laughed and was about to put his phone away when another message popped up, practically sparking. CC, OMG, who is that man next to you? That tall, handsome silhouette? Julian's heart leaped into his throat. He realized then that the picture had captured a faint reflection of him and Ethan. They were standing close together. Ethan, his backpack on, was looking down as Julian took the picture. What kind of microscope was CC using? Julian quickly turned off his phone. Ethan turned to him. What's wrong? You look like you just made a terrible mistake. Julian's expression was grim. I just fed someone I shouldn't have. After being seated, Ethan ordered, then asked Julian to choose as well. Figuring that Ethan wanted to make his parents pay for their thoughtlessness, he didn't insist on paying himself. You can choose. I'm not a picky eater. Ethan looked down and picked a few more dishes for him. He then told the waiter to bring non-alcoholic drinks. Julian asked if he couldn't drink tonight. Ethan gave him a thoughtful look. There are a lot of shells tonight. I'm afraid you'll be peeling them until dawn. It was a stereotype. A feast of seafood was soon brought to their table. There were shellfish, crabs, and fish of all kinds, all perfectly prepared. Julian clinked his juice glass with Ethan's to congratulate him on his win, then said he wanted to get him a gift and asked what he wanted. He wondered if he needed wristbands for training, or a t-shirt or shoes, but shoes were important. Ethan probably had his own preferences. And he had plenty of t-shirts. The voice across the table said, pajamas. Julian's mind was still on the track. He looked up. What? Ethan was methodically dismantling a king crab leg. Can my uncle get me a set of pajamas? The ones I brought from home aren't enough. It took Julian a few seconds to process. Okay. He asked if he had a preferred brand. Yes, I do. They're having a sale right now. Uncle can pick a set for himself too, so they would have to go to a mall. Julian checked his schedule. He had a business trip this coming weekend, but he should be back on Sunday. He asked if they could go on the weekend. Ethan paused, then smiled. Okay. It was getting late. After dinner, they prepared to go home. Ethan, having demolished a pile of shrimp, crab, and fish, took a picture and sent it to Chase. Julian watched him. Returning the favor? No, just letting him savor it. Julian thought of the innocent which dessert place and wondered how long it would take for the man to get a clue. The weekend passed, and it was Monday again. In the conference room, Leo tapped a rolled-up proposal on the table. This week's focus is the Valentine's Day event. Remember to remind all the artists to step it up. And the bookstore's special Valentine's display. Then, on Friday, the business trip. Me and Julian. Julian took notes. Got it. Leo continued, we'll go to Sea City on Friday to set up. Saturday is Valentine's Day, so we'll be at the event all day. We'll come back Sunday morning. He paused, giving Julian a long, pointed look. You don't have Valentine's Day plans, do you? Julian's pen stopped. Could they not have a normal meeting? He looked up and retorted, of course not. I assume our senior or won't be eloping with someone mid-business trip either. Leo gave a dry laugh. Of course not. The meeting ended, as usual, with mutual jabs and the gleeful gossip of the other oars. After the meeting, the group filed out. Julian and Leo, as usual, were the last to leave. "It's going to rain this weekend, so the temperature will drop," Leo said, sipping his iced coffee. "Remember to bring an umbrella and a jacket." Julian made a mental note. "Okay." They walked side by side for a bit. Leo glanced at him, his voice softening slightly. "If you really have something on Saturday, you can just say so. I can ask someone else to go." Julian looked at him in surprise. It was rare for Leo, who was usually so composed and professional, to say something so considerate. He softened as well. "It's fine. I can make plans for Sunday." As soon as the words left his mouth, the person next to him stopped walking. A triumphant expression appeared on Leo's face. "Ha! I knew you had a Valentine's Day date." Julian was incredulous. What a devious trap. They stared at each other for a moment. Then Julian smiled sweetly. "Is your other person Aaron?" He walked away, ignoring the fact that Leo's face had darkened several shades. After a mentally taxing day of corporate battles, Julian decided to treat himself. He stopped at the supermarket on his way home and bought beef, pork belly, and meatballs for a hot pot. He was a little later than usual. As he was leaving the supermarket, he got a message from Ethan. "Ethan, Uncle, are you on your way back?" Julian just left the supermarket with ingredients. Almost at the apartment complex. "Ethan, want me to come down and help you carry them?" Julian smiled and replied that it wasn't necessary. He exited the chat and saw a few new messages in the building's community group chat. A lost and found post, an invitation to a poker game, and a couple of neighborhood tidbits. App 302. The Calico and the Orange Tabby are fighting again. App 206. A suspicious-looking scavenger was seen roaming around. He was just taken to the security office. Be careful when you're out. Julian finished scrolling just as he reached his building. He put his phone away and opened the door. Ethan. Ethan was on the couch reading a manga. He looked up at the sound. "You're back, Uncle." Julian's gaze fell on the book in his hand, My Brother's Secret, and he tried his best to ignore it. He announced that they were having hot pot tonight. Ethan came over. "Okay." As they were preparing the ingredients at the table, Julian, afraid that Ethan would start talking about forbidden manga again, tried to change the subject. He asked if he had been in touch with his uncle lately. Ethan, tearing open a package, scoffed. Julian understood. He didn't try to make amends. He said he thought he had called a couple of times, but he was reading and didn't answer. As they were talking, Julian's phone buzzed. He saw it was Chase. "Your uncle is calling me too." He was still holding the ingredients. By the time he had finished opening the package, the call had ended, and 2 messages had appeared. "Let me just check this." Ethan took the ingredients from him. "Okay." Julian opened the message and saw, "Chase. Julian. Help. Location pin, Crestview Apartments Security Office." Julian stared at the location pin for a long moment, then took a deep breath. "Forget the ingredients for now. Your uncle is here." Ethan paused, frowning. "Where is he?" Julian replied, "The security office." Ethan turned his head. "What?" He couldn't explain it in a few words. And even if he could, it would be a difficult explanation, especially the part about the suspicious-looking scavenger. He didn't even know what had happened to Chase. Amidst his bewilderment, he felt a strange sense of relief. At least Chase had been intercepted. He turned to the TV stand. "Ethan, move all the books to the forbidden zone, then lock the door." Ethan nodded and, with one sweep of his long arm, gathered up most of the manga. He looked at Julian. "Why didn't you lock the door when I first came?" Julian's gaze was steady. "You're different. Chase is a husky among men." After securing the forbidden books, they left the apartment and headed to the security office to retrieve Chase. The office was next to the main gate of the complex. Julian braced himself before walking in. Inside, a tall, goofy-looking man was sitting on a small stool. Despite his handsome features, he had an air of pure, unadulterated cluelessness. A bundle of sticks was tied to his back, and a large burlap sack sat next to him, something moving inside. He looked as suspicious as one could possibly look. A security guard was prodding the sack with a stick. Chase immediately started wailing, begging him not to poke it, or the crabs would die and they wouldn't be able to eat them. As he turned dramatically, the sticks on his back swept a pile of documents off a desk, scattering them on the floor. Julian closed his eyes. He hadn't prepared himself enough. He just wanted to disappear to a scenic location. The next second, Chase spotted him. "Julian! Ethan! Save me!" Julian took a deep breath and walked in. Ethan followed silently. Julian approached Chase and asked what he was doing. Chase gestured to the sticks. "I've come to atone for my sins." Julian retorted that at this rate, his sins would be too numerous to count. The security guard, seeing their familiar interaction, hesitated. "Mr. Clark, is this man really your relative?" Julian glanced at Ethan's stony face. "For now." The guard immediately apologized for the misunderstanding and let Chase go. Chase grumbled, asking if they had ever seen such a handsome scavenger. The guard replied sternly that professions were not judged by appearance. Chase was speechless. Julian, unable to watch any longer, urged him to hurry up and leave. They finally left the security office. As the sunlight hit them, Julian looked at Chase's slightly haggard face and thought, "He has seen the light of day again." He told him to throw away the sticks. Chase refused, saying it was a symbol of his sincerity. Julian looked at Ethan. Ethan looked down and said flatly, "Throw them away, Uncle, while I can still control my hands." Chase immediately threw the sticks away. Then, out of habit, he handed the large sack to Ethan. "Here, Ethan, hold this." Julian's voice was gentle. "Aren't you here to atone for your sins?" Chase remembered. "Oh, right. I'll carry it myself." After a convoluted journey, they finally made it back to the apartment. Chase opened the sack, and a pile of live crabs scuttled out. He announced that he had just come back from a business trip to F-City and had brought them the fattest crabs from a friend's crab farm. He glanced at Ethan and cleared his throat. "Last time we were inconsiderate." Ethan looked at the crabs for a few seconds. It was unclear if he was exhausted or just being magnanimous, but he sighed heavily. "Forget it." Chase was relieved and immediately became cheerful again. He asked what they were having for dinner and suggested they cook the crabs. "Hot pot," Julian said. Chase was confused. "So we'll just keep the crabs for now? Keep them where?" This wasn't an aquarium. As Julian was contemplating this, he heard Ethan ask, "Uncle, do you want to eat them tonight? We should cook a few while they're fresh." Julian agreed. Ethan bent down to grab a crab. "Then we'll have hot pot, and I'll make some typhoon shelter crab. Since Uncle is here, we can add a dish." He then expertly went to the kitchen counter. Chase was stunned. He turned to Julian for confirmation. "Is that Ethan? Is that really Ethan? He can cook something that complicated?" Julian defended him. "Ethan is very capable." Chase made a sking sound, then looked Julian up and down. "You know, I think you have a certain quality. Anyone who lives with you just can't help but feed you." I remember back in college, when we were roommates, the three of us would always... As he was talking, Ethan shot a look over from the kitchen. Julian, feeling like he was being portrayed as a useless freeloader, cut him off. "All right, come and help me with the hot pot." Chase agreed. The dining table was right next to the kitchen counter. Ethan was preparing the crabs while Julian arranged the hot pot ingredients. Chase wandered around like a lost puppy, sniffing at things, looking at others. He fiddled with a plastic bag, then went to inspect Julian's plating. "What's this? Wow, that's impressive." Just as he was about to put his head on Julian's shoulder, a loud thud came from the counter, the sound of a knife hitting a cutting board. "Uncle." Ethan looked straight at him. "If you have nothing to do, just sit down and wait for dinner." Chase immediately backed off, subdued. He went to the living room. Julian felt like he could finally breathe. He had just exhaled when he heard a voice from behind him. "Hey, there's a manga on the couch. Whose is it?" "Ethan, you read manga?" The kitchen and dining area fell silent. "Oh God." Julian nearly squeezed a meatball to pulp. "My brother's secret." He turned his head, his voice calm. Chase, who was 3 steps away from the manga, stopped and turned. "What?" Julian's heart was pounding. He kept his voice even. "Help me make some juice. There are oranges in the fridge." Chase wandered over. "Okay." Once the clueless figure was safely away from the danger zone, Julian breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Ethan. He saw that Ethan was looking at him, a smile playing on his lips. How could he still be smiling? He glared at him. Ethan just laughed out loud. Chase, who was getting oranges, turned his head in surprise. "Huh? Ethan, did you just laugh?" Ethan, casually dismantling a crab, replied, "You heard wrong, Uncle." While they were talking, Julian stealthily slipped over to the living room and stuffed the dangerous manga under a seat cushion. After hiding it, he subconsciously touched his ear. It was hot. The hot pot and a plate of crab were served. The 3 of them sat down at the table. The steam from the hot pot, the warm light, and the general atmosphere were quite cozy. The serving ladle for the hot pot was on Julian's side. He had just scooped out 2 meatballs when Chase leaned over, holding out his bowl. "Julian, help me out." The familiar phrasing brought back unpleasant memories. Julian gave him a long look, then plopped 2 meatballs into his bowl. A few bites later, Chase leaned over again. "Get me some shrimp paste." Since he was a guest, Julian magnanimously reached for the ladle. But before he could touch it, another hand reached over from across the table and picked it up. "I'll do it." He looked up to see Ethan, sitting tall and straight, calmly scooping some for Chase. Then he reached out his hand to Julian. "Uncle, give me your bowl." Julian was momentarily stunned, then handed it over. "Thanks." Ethan filled his bowl with shrimp paste and fish balls, carefully avoiding the spicy condiments, then passed it to him. He then topped off his juice glass. The service was seamless. Finally, he asked Chase casually, "Is that how you used to feed my uncle in your dorm?" Julian paused. So he had heard. Chase looked up from his bowl. "Huh? Well, not exactly like." He searched for the right word. He wasn't that demanding. Ethan just nodded and didn't say anything else. Julian glanced at Ethan, then at Chase. He suddenly remembered that back in college, Chase had been, for the most part, a diligent and kind person when he brought him his meals. But for some reason, compared to Ethan now, he seemed incredibly lazy. He pushed the thought away. It was just an illusion. The hot pot bubbled on the table. Julian, wanting to eat the crab while it was hot, picked up a few pieces and started cracking them open. He was a fast eater, finishing half a crab in one bite. Chase, watching him, suddenly laughed. I just remembered something. Julian's mouth can really hold a lot. Julian almost choked. He knew exactly what he was about to say, but his mouth was full of crab. Before he could stop him, Chase had already started his story. One time, in a public lecture in college, Julian brought a small apple. We bet him he couldn't eat it in one bite. He didn't hesitate and just shoved the whole thing in his mouth. Ethan put down his chopsticks, intrigued. Oh, and what happened? Chase continued. If he won, we would call him Bro. Ethan was silent for a moment. And then, Chase burst out laughing. And then he got called on to answer a question. Ethan let out a small laugh and turned his head away. Julian's fingers trembled. He stared at Chase. Chase. He could feel the heat rising up his neck. This idiot. Why was he saying these things in front of Ethan? A suffocating heat enveloped him. Ethan, very considerately, stood up and collected the dishes. I'll go do the dishes. He went to the kitchen counter. Julian glared at Chase. Chase slowly reined in his boisterous laughter and slumped back in his chair, patting his stomach. All right, I'll stop messing with you. Julian gave a dry laugh. The damage was already done. He gave him a sidelong glance and slumped back as well. The dining table fell silent. They were both facing the kitchen counter, where they could see Ethan's back as he washed the dishes. After a moment, Julian heard Chase call his name. He turned to see a look of sincere gratitude in his eyes. Since he came to stay with you, Ethan seems to have changed a lot. Julian was taken aback. He followed his gaze. Ethan's strong back moved slightly, revealing a section of his neck. He looked more mature than his age. As Julian watched, a strange feeling stirred in his chest. Then he heard Chase say, he's become more of a workhorse. Julian spoke softly, have some sense. Don't let Ethan hear you say that. Chase nodded. After dinner, Chase lounged on the couch. Ethan's shirt had gotten a little oily when he was cooking the crab. Julian told him to go change while he cut up some fruit. He brought a plate of watermelon to the living room and saw Chase looking bored. Nothing to do. Hey, wasn't there a manga here just now? What was it? Julian's foot hit the table leg. He almost sent the entire plate of watermelon flying into his face. He steadied himself, put the plate down and said, Track and field boys. I think Ethan put it away. Chase seemed interested. Sounds good. Let me borrow it. Julian replied, you can ask Ethan when he comes out. A few minutes later, Ethan came out after changing. Julian immediately went over to him. He pulled him aside and whispered, quick, give your uncle your copy of Track and Field Boys. The overhead light shone down on them. Ethan was silent for a moment, his Adam's apple moving slightly as he turned his head away. I don't have that manga. What? Julian stared at his well-defined profile. After a moment, it dawned on him. That day in the locker room, from behind him, Chase's voice called out, Did you find Track and Field Boys? Julian felt a storm brewing in his own eyes. He looked at Ethan, his voice as gentle as a spring breeze. Then what do you have? Discus Prince? Hurdle King? His tone was mild, but it carried the weight of an impending storm. Ethan was silent for another moment. Then he turned back, smoothly deflecting the issue. Uncle, let's talk about this later. First, let's deal with my uncle. Behind them, Chase let out a long, drawn-out Did you find the manga? Julian calmed himself and gestured. How do we deal with him? Ethan saw that his face had returned to its usual placid state, though the tips of his ears were still a conspicuous red. His fingers, hanging by his side, curled slightly. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Julian was hopeful. Do you have another manga? We don't need a manga. Ethan looked over at the couch. It's 8 o'clock. Uncle should be heading home. Julian looked at him, shocked. He was actually kicking him out. Ethan had already walked over to the couch. Uncle, it's 8. How long does it take you to get home? Chase was surprised. What? It's 8 already? Then I should get going. He stood up to leave. Julian turned to see him off. I'm heading out. Remember to eat the crabs. He walked him to the door. Okay. Ethan followed. At the door, Chase put on his shoes and turned to say, Ethan, I'll come see you again soon. Then he grabbed Julian's hand, his face full of mock tears. And Julian, don't miss me too much? Ethan slowly turned his gaze on him. Julian's voice was gentle. Don't worry, I won't. In the dark night, the door slammed shut. After sending off the late-night foghorn, the entranceway fell quiet again. Julian was about to head back in when he heard a casual voice beside him. Uncle, you and my uncle are very close? Ethan turned his head. You let me move in after just one word from him. Julian paused, then corrected him. It wasn't just one word. It was probably 5 or 6. He then changed the subject. Let's go back to the living room and clean up, track and field boy. The silence beside him seemed to stretch. Then Ethan followed him, his large shadow trailing behind him like a big dog. Julian had already composed himself. He reasoned that Ethan had a naturally playful and teasing personality. It was just that his handsome face and casual demeanor made it seem a little flirtatious. He went to the table to clear the fruit plate, jokingly interrogating him. Do you enjoy teasing your uncle? Do you find it fun? Ethan looked at him for a few seconds, confirming that he wasn't really angry, then smiled. No, what? It's not fun? Julian glanced at him. Ethan took the plate from his hand. And in that situation, if I had said track and field boys, you wouldn't have felt so awkward, right? Julian paused, thinking back. The slight flutter in his heart when they were alone had indeed calmed down after Ethan said that. He nodded, letting the matter go. That was thoughtful of you. Ethan replied, I should be. After getting rid of Chase, it was back to work. With the Valentine's Day event just around the corner, the entire office was in a flurry of preparation. A few days passed, and it was almost Friday. The business trip was scheduled for that morning. On Thursday evening, Julian was pouring milk in the kitchen when he told Ethan, Ethan, I have a business trip this weekend. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. The living room seemed to fall silent for a couple of seconds. He was about to turn around when he heard a quiet voice. But Uncle, aren't we going to the mall this weekend? Julian assured him that he remembered. He would be back on Sunday morning. He asked if Ethan had plans for Sunday. Ethan, flipping through a manga, said he didn't. Then we'll go on Sunday, Julian said. He finished pouring the milk and closed the fridge. And even if I didn't have a business trip, I would have planned for Sunday anyway. Ethan looked up. Because Saturday is Valentine's Day? Julian was surprised that Ethan knew about Valentine's Day. He nodded. Ethan pressed his lips together. Do you mind? No, it's just that there will be too many people. Julian's expression was grave. On Valentine's Day, you have to wait in line to eat, wait in line to use the restroom, even wait for a cab. Ethan, we are absolutely not going out on Valentine's Day. Ethan's lips moved slightly. Okay, Uncle. After pouring a glass of milk for each of them, Julian sat down on the couch. He had barely taken a few sips when he heard a casual question. Is the whole department going on the business trip? No, just the senior oars and above. The pages of a manga rustled beside him. Ethan didn't say anything else after that. Julian finished his milk and looked over. Ethan was staring down at his manga, his expression unreadable, seeming a little down. Was it because he was leaving for 2 days and leaving him alone? He thought for a moment and said, "Ethan, I'll bring you back some souvenirs from Sea City." Ethan looked up, his eyes reflecting the light. Julian's fingers tightened slightly. "Although I don't know what the local specialties are. What do you like?" Ethan suddenly smiled, as if his low mood had just been an illusion. He grinned happily. "I've been craving something sweet lately." Julian's mood brightened as well. "Okay, I'll see what I can find." On Friday morning, he took a cab to the train station. He met up with Leo and they boarded the train. Leo was his usual dapper self. As soon as they sat down, he started talking about work. After arriving in Sea City, they would first go to the hotel to drop off their luggage, then meet with the person in charge and a few of the artists in the afternoon. Saturday would be a full day at the event. Julian flipped through the itinerary. It's a tight schedule. Leo glanced at him. "You can be so calm about a weekend business trip. You must really be supported by your passion." Julian looked back at him. "And what are you supported by?" "My salary, of course." Julian gave him a long, meaningful look. Even the owner of a Prius had to bow to reality. After they finished discussing work, there was still some time before they reached Sea City. Julian used the time to look through the Sea City travel guide in the seat pocket in front of him. Leo turned to him. "What are you looking at?" Julian flipped through the pages. "I'm looking for local specialties." Ethan said he wants something sweet. A strange laugh came from beside him. He turned his head. What's wrong with you?" Leo adjusted his glasses, a knowing look in his eyes. "Isn't there an almond chocolate from Sea City? Sweet." Julian was surprised. He looked it up and found that there was indeed such a thing. Leo's voice drifted over. "A souvenir custom-made. It's a local specialty, and it's sweet." Julian paused. Normally, it would be fine, but with Valentine's Day just around the corner, giving chocolate seemed a little suggestive, especially with the meaningful look he was getting from the side. He composed himself. "Athletes shouldn't eat things that are too sweet. I'll look for something else." Leo laughed again. Julian's fist clenched. "Restrain yourself, he's your superior." He took a deep breath and retorted, "You seem to know a lot about this. Who are you planning to give it to?" Leo replied, "I don't have anyone around me who has specifically requested something sweet." Julian said, "Oh, so they're just hinting at it." Leo just scoffed. The rest of the train ride was spent in their usual battle of wits. When they arrived in Sea City, they finally called a truce. As soon as Julian stepped out of the station, he saw a number of souvenir shops selling all sorts of things. Food, trinkets, memorabilia. He stopped to look around. The closest one was the chocolate shop Leo had mentioned. The chocolates were made in various shapes and displayed like works of art. They looked quite nice. As he was looking, a voice whispered in his ear, "If you want to buy it, just buy it." He jumped, nearly swinging his luggage around. He clutched his chest and turned around, his expression serious. "Is the car here yet? How long will it take to get to the hotel?" Leo looked at his phone. "The car will be here in 10 minutes. It's a 40-minute drive to the hotel. So it would be almost an hour before they got to the hotel." Julian said he was going to the restroom first. He handed his luggage to Leo and left. As his figure disappeared around the corner, Leo looked at his retreating back, then at the chocolate shop. He smiled, adjusted his glasses, and walked over. "Hello, I'd like to ship a box of chocolates." The shopkeeper behind the counter started to write down the details. "Your name and address, please." Leo pulled up an address on his phone. Name, Julian Clark. Address: Crestview Apartments, for Ethan Scott. He paid and then returned to his spot as if nothing had happened. His mission accomplished. 5 minutes later, Julian returned. As he approached, he saw that Leo's glasses were gleaming, and a smug, self-satisfied smile was on his face. It was incredibly annoying. Julian frowned. "What are you up to?" Leo just hummed. "Nothing. Here, hold my luggage for a minute. I'm going to the restroom too." Julian took the luggage and watched him go. As his figure disappeared around the corner, Julian thought about his infuriating smile and his meaningful words. After a moment, his gaze shifted to the chocolate shop. He stewed for a few seconds, then walked in. "Hello, I'd like to ship a box of chocolates." The shopkeeper was unfazed. "Your name and address, please." Name: Leo Vance. Address: Autumn Court Apartments, for Aaron Hall. He paid, then returned to his spot as if nothing had happened, a small smile playing on his lips. "Oh, Leo." 5 minutes later, Leo returned. When Julian saw his face, he couldn't help but smile at him. Leo was unsettled by his smile and adjusted his glasses. "What are you smiling at me for?" "Nothing." Julian's voice was gentle. "It's just been 5 minutes, but I've missed you." Leo was about to say something else, but their car arrived. "All right, let's go." The topic was dropped, and they got in the car. The hotel was near the city center. 40 minutes later, they checked in. As usual, it was a twin room. They brought their luggage inside. The room was bright and spacious. Leo suggested they go for lunch first. Julian, having just successfully executed his plan, was in a magnanimous mood. "Thank you for the treat." Leo turned to him. "Who's treating you?" "We're splitting it." Julian just smiled tolerantly and didn't argue. After lunch, they went to the event venue. The event was held at a large convention center. As Julian entered the hall, he saw the marble floors, polished to a mirror shine, and the sparkling crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. The organizers and artists were already arriving. This year's Valentine's Day event included not only BL artists, but also shoujo and shonen manga artists. The first time Julian had attended a Valentine's Day event, he hadn't understood why shonen manga artists were there. It was only after he saw the dozens of different pairings for the main characters in the merchandise that he realized. Shonen manga was the ultimate source of shipping material. As he was reminiscing, several oars and artists came up to them. "Senior Editor Vance, Editor Clark." Julian greeted them one by one. Someone suddenly called out his name, Julian. He looked up to see a shoujo manga artist he knew, MS Sato, running toward him excitedly. She pulled him into a photo. "I'm starting a new series soon. Let me take a picture for character reference." Julian was flattered. The male lead, MS Sato, beamed. The beautiful, tragic heroine. Her or quickly pulled her away, apologizing to Julian. He then turned to her. MS Sato, that's very rude. Julian was forgiving. "It's fine, it's just for a character." The gender, her, or continued in a low voice. Tragic heroines usually die early. Julian stared at him. "You're not even going to question the gender?" After they left, Julian tried to compose himself. Leo appeared beside him. "What were you doing?" "Making friends," Julian replied. He looked at Leo, who had just extricated himself from a similar situation. "And you?" Leo replied seriously. "I passed through 1,000 flowers, but not a single petal clings to me." Julian nodded. 1,000 flowers are no match for the purity of Aaron Hall. Leo just scoffed. He was about to say something else, but then he smiled. "Never mind. I won't stoop to your level." Julian was suspicious. He was being too tolerant. Something was strange. Before he could figure out what was going on, his phone vibrated. He opened it and saw it was Ethan. Ethan, Uncle, did you arrive? Julian, I'm at the event venue now. Ethan, oh, sorry to bother you at work. In his peripheral vision, he saw Leo's gaze drift over again. Julian suppressed his unease and walked a little further away. Julian, it's fine. I just finished greeting the organizers and artists. I'm on a break now. What's up, Ethan? Ethan, just finished a run and taking a break. Came to find my uncle. The sticker he sent, a big dog lying on its stomach, was particularly fluffy. Julian was instantly smitten. He had no defense against this kind of thing. He pictured Ethan and suddenly remembered that day at the track meet when his tall frame had collapsed onto his shoulder. The memory brought back the feeling of hot, ragged breaths against his neck. His heart, his breathing, the heat. It all came rushing back. As he was lost in thought, he heard Leo call his name. Julian, MS. Tanaka is here. Stop flirting over there and come say hello. Julian's fist clenched. Leo's mouth. He took a deep breath and walked over. Several other artists were standing there. They overheard and started gossiping. Editor Clark has a partner? Oh, that's right. It's Valentine's Day, and he still has to work on a business trip. He must be placating his partner. Julian calmly stated, Senior Editor Vance is telling jokes. MS. Tanaka, long time no see. MS. Tanaka looked at the tips of his ears and smiled knowingly. As they were talking, they heard a loud exclamation from nearby. I have to work on Valentine's Day. Is that what MS. Kurosawa said? Julian looked up to see the person in charge on the phone, practically jumping up and down. She's on her way. Ask her which road she's on. What? The road to my heart. Do you know how winding and long the road to my heart is right now?